Table Talk is not your typical D&D TTRPG podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of tabletop roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies. And we are live. Thank you so much for coming back and tuning in. We have another really great guest episode here for you. One that I'm very excited about because I want to learn a thing. But
I'd like to go to D&D school.
I would like to go to D&D combat school specifically. But yeah, we are joined. So quick thing. Is it Thom?
It is Thom. I will go by either, but Thom is preferred.
Thom is preferred. Okay. So we are joined by Thom, Dungeon Master Thom. If you want to give us a quick little introduction about you and what you do and where people can find you, and any cool projects you got going on.
100%. Yeah. First off, thank you so much for having me on. We've talked about before we started. I've listened to your podcast before, and I really love it. And I just think this kind of content, bringing it into the D&D sphere, is very valuable. And I'm really happy to be here. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my name's Thom. I go by both. I go by Thomas and Thom, but you can call me Thom. And I am a Canadian, and I work as a media analyst for an ad agency. And I started playing D&D back in high school. And I am I know everybody probably says this, and but I am like a massive fantasy and storytelling nerd. But I am also...
Yeah, us too.
As par for the course,
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
It's kind of private edition.
What a coincidence.
Who would have guessed as I hide all of my fantasy memorabilia?
Yeah, 100%. I'm so into that kind of stuff, but I'm also like a really big statistics nerd. So I graduated with a marketing degree, but I actually got a certificate in economics just because I loved economics so much. So on top of that, then I'm a really big, I'm really into MMORPGs and kind of all games sort of revolving around that genre. And so I've sort of combined my love for statistics into those games. And I don't love the term, but I think what you consider a power gamer. I really get into the nitty gritty of mechanics and sort of how everything works sort of behind the screen of all the games that I've played. And I've taken a step back from playing most games just because I'm getting older. I just got engaged, and responsibilities that it was chaos. Let me tell you about engagements real quick. I thought it was going to be super romantic, but she didn't know what was going on until I had asked the question 4 times, and it was not romantic. It was just
oh, poor baby.
Yeah, it was just chaos the whole time, but it went really well. Anyway.
Also a little as well.
Yeah. And so anyway, I play a lot of video games, and I love the mechanics and the statistics behind it. And so that naturally kind of came into when I started DMing, and I just got really into understanding how combat works and how to make really exciting and interesting combat for my players, because I have my sort of take is that I find that most combat in D&D, if you're inexperienced or if you are just starting out, it's really hard to make combat exciting for everyone all the time. And it's something that I struggled with a lot when I first started playing, and naturally my whole background of wanting to kind of learn the nitty gritty of what goes on and the balancing of everything, I really started to dive deep into how can I make this fun for everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And that sort of naturally segued into, I started making content this year. I graduated with a degree in graphic design. I was studying in Vancouver for a while. And then after that, I got this job. Everything's great. But I also, I've always kind of I always have something I'm working on the side. And so I started publishing what I call boss encounter content. But basically what it is, it's just very intense combat specific PDFs revolving around like a boss encounter for D&D that players can use. They can kind of like drag and drop into their games. And it really focuses on just like a full session of combat, like giving your players a full session of combat, but making it exciting for everybody.
Which, by the way, as a DM, as soon as I like started looking over your stuff, I was like, oh, this is gonna be everything to me
Like,
every single time I'm like planning combat, because like your stuff is such good quality, and then you're so extensive and like giving all of like the stat blocks, the item descriptions, the monsters, the everything. I was like, oh, this is gonna be my life for a hot minute.
I was like, I'm gonna try to steal some of this for Vampire.
Steal all of it. That is so nice. Thank you guys so much. That genuinely means a lot. I get so giddy when anybody interacts with like any of my stuff, because like I've always kind of wanted to create content like this and I never really pulled the trigger on it. But after I got like a degree in design and everything, I sort of felt like I had the capabilities to actually produce things that I felt were like good enough to share with the world. And so whenever anybody says anything, I'm just like, every Instagram like humbles me. I just get so excited, and like, so thank you guys a lot. That really,
yeah, absolutely. It's really fucking good content. And
the art is also really great. We were looking through it and I was like, all these like unintentionally erotic werewolves that are like out here.
That I realized that halfway through, and I was like, these are some erotic werewolves.
These are some erotic werewolves. And listen,
yeah,
as like certified monster fuckers, we were like, hey, and then me and Mariah had to be like, okay, it's erotic to us, but it's not going to be erotic to most people, and we need to keep
not to everybody.
I should change my brand to erotic werewolf producer.
If you tap into the monster fucker market, you will find such a slew of support. Let me tell you. Put me on your marketing team.
I'm not as like deep in the trenches as Ali is, as far as like, but like werewolves are pretty accessible.
Yeah.
As monsters go.
Yeah.
So like we
just a fluffy boyfriend.
As like the teen wolf generation.
The teen wolf generation. The team
like,
Jacobs
the Twilight generation. My friend and I watched Twilight like 2 days ago, so I'm back on my like Jacob and Bella fanfiction bullshit. I'm like, how
am I here? Building again.
But no, yeah, it's so good.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Nope, that's okay. I was like, how do I transition back to
be shameless about it, be like
seamless.
So anyway.
But anyway, so my kind of goal with the content that I create and provide is, again, to kind of just create that like really intensive encounters that have a lot of moving parts to them, but that give all the players some sort of like some like a form of entertainment. Because again, I think what a lot of and I have a story that I can follow up with, like a personal experience. But I think what a lot of new DMs fall into is, I think they look at like the monster manual and they see stat blocks for all these creatures and they're like, they look so cool. And they throw them into an encounter. It's not really thought about. And it's like you're fighting 4 guards and it just ends up everybody's just like trading attack rolls. Nobody's moving around. You're just kind of like hoping to outroll them or like outroll the other people. And you just kind of fall into this trap of like, in your mind, it seems like a really cool combat encounter, but once you like actually execute it, there's not a lot for your players to decide to do. And it's very straightforward for them to, I run up and I like hit the monster, I hit the guard or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes this like, like I said, it just becomes this like trading of like, I attack, I don't move because I don't want to provoke an opportunity to attack. And there's not a lot of decision that the players have to make. And it just kind of becomes this like stale back and forth until usually the players come out on top. And I think a lot of DMs that are new, they fall into that trap. So this, again, my content is aimed at really providing a lot of dynamic, just a lot of dynamic choices that the players have to make. And we can talk more about like that with like questions talking about how to make combat better. And I'll probably reference my stuff, but the one thing I actually did, this all kind of stemmed from when I was running Tomb of Annihilation with my my group. I don't know if you guys have ran that adventure.
I haven't run it, but like I've heard of
it too, and I've like looked into it a little bit, and it seems really cool.
It was really fun. There's a lot of things I like changed about it, which is I think just normal for all like kind of adventures. However, there was one specific day that I had been teasing. There's like you explore the island. That's kind of part of the adventure. And
Mhm.
I've been teasing to the players like they're all buddies of mine. And when we go out for beers, I'm like, there's an undead T-Rex coming. There's get ready. It's exciting. And I've been teasing this for a long time. And then eventually we got to the part where the undead T-Rex came, and it was like this cool big monster, but it only had one attack that was like a bite attack. So it just ran up to the players and then like used its bite attack. And then all the players just hit it, and then it used its bite attack, and then all the players hit it. And again, like it goes back to there was no actual thing about the encounter that made it exciting. It was just like we're fighting this thing. And and that sort of stemmed, I would say, my want to kind of create something more dynamic.
Gotcha. Okay. So I love that. And like me, for example, I'm someone that like traditionally, even as a player, like combat was never my biggest strength.
Yeah,
Sometimes it takes me a while to really get in the flow of like what my character can even accomplish with their abilities and their class and their feats and etc. And sometimes it takes me a learning curve. I've even had like to sit down some of my DMs. I'm like, hey, here's my character sheet. Please explain it to me like I'm 5. And show me how I can be the best version of myself in combat. And so it's something I've struggled with a lot as a player. I've gotten a lot better about it now, but like now stepping into the chair as a DM for like 5e specifically, I noticed in the beginning, like with one shots or whatever, like random encounters, like I did some encounters that I ran strictly like according to the book. But I kind of ran into that issue of what you're saying of either the encounter was too easy and it was really like, in my opinion, whether my players believe it or not, I just felt like it wasn't dynamic enough, and it was very like I just run up and hit. They were like level 1, so like I run up and hit the rat or whatever. Not super interesting. I slice the rat. So not super interesting. And then I remember the first time that I really like kind of tried to design a combat was for like a Christmas one shot where they were gonna go meet Krampus and shit. And I picked like some red, like how they were gonna find out was like they were gonna be ambushed by some red caps like on their journey, who were like mounted combatants and stuff. And so I had like, I think there was like maybe 4 of them. And I was like, I think this is good. And I think I used D&D Beyond to build the encounter. And I was like, these are my players. This is how level they are. And like, these are all the monsters I want to include. And it kind of gives you like a rating of like how difficult it'll be for the players. Which like was not very accurate in my opinion, to what actually like happened at the table.
Did you find accurate?
Yeah.
Sorry, did you find it accurate like in that it said it was going to be harder than it was, or easy? Like, did you think it was easier than it said it was going to be?
So I had the issue of like I thought I had made something that was going to be challenging, which I think is what it told me, but like achievable. I didn't want to go too crazy on like the hardness scale. But it turned out just being like, you know, they executed them rather quickly and simply. And so I just kind of had a moment of like, well, damn, I was hoping it would be a little bit more than that. But you know, it's whatever. And we just kind of had like a more narrative session after that. Because we have role play hosts at the table, and they do have a tendency to talk their way out of combat. But like as much role play as we have in our games, that is like a skill I want to develop, because I do want those moments where there is meant to be combat, there is meant to be tension, there's meant to be stakes, to feel dynamic, because I've had combats that I've also like, we have a horror campaign after like we're done playing my game on those weekends. And like our DM Teddy is so good about combat and making it feel tense. And like in that game, I feel like we really get into like,
that's the longest anyone has ever gotten me to stay engaged
in a combat,
because I usually have a very hard time with it. And it does depend on like, am I rested? Am I tired? Like, do I feel like all of that jazz? But after a while, typically I just really start to zone out. Because like I don't typically play role-playing games for the like I like it, it's an element of it. But like the game I run, generally Vampire the Masquerade, they have like a 3 rounds and out mechanic for combat to kind of expedite it and then get back to
Oh, that's a cool mechanic.
Yeah.
and like that's something that like I'm more comfortable with as DM, but I would also like to get better at like finding ways to make combat engaging for myself and stay engaged when I'm a player. And yeah, like you said, making it narratively have stakes and feel interesting.
And he's just really good about getting at like I don't like I've needed to like zone out of my character for a minute and just really analyze what he does because he's so good at like keeping us engaged. It feels tense the whole time and we are like really like even when it's someone else's turn, your head is churning about what you're going to be doing and how to like optimize the situation, and it feels dynamic. It feels
like
engaging.
The environment changes so many times. You feel like, okay, we're starting to get a little bit of progress, and it's like, nah, here's 3 death mooses that are here.
Death mooses.
Death mooses that are here to kill you.
But it's so cool, and it's something I want to have players feel that at my table, like so much, you know.
Yeah. Can I ask how many people are in the game? Like the one where you find combat very like good and like intense. How many players do you play?
There is 1, 2, 5. 5. Yeah, there's 5 of us.
5. Okay, that's actually pretty good then. Because normally, like the first thing that like I think is like an issue that I am currently dealing with is that since it's turn-based, right? Like too many players can obviously just slow stuff down like so immensely. I'm currently playing a game with 8 players. And they're sort of like it's kind of this sneaky thing where they're sort of play testing all of the content I'm putting out, but they don't know that I'm actually like doing all of this like content stuff on the side. I've blocked them all on my Instagram account. Like they have no idea.
They have no idea this is happening.
Yeah, and I'll show them all of these files in the like VTT, and they'll be like, "Oh, Thom, you really put a lot of work into this session." I'm like, this is.
And you're like, yeah, I'm just so passionate about our game specifically.
You guys had a special idea.
Yeah. But I'm running it with 8 people right now, and that's turned out to be a challenge. One thing I would say though, if you have a larger group of people, something that I found to work really well, and this is a little off topic, but I found combined initiative, if you're comfortable with it as a DM and you think you can handle it, is actually like adds a lot more chaos and fun to the game, where if like there's 3 players that are going back to back to back and they're all like in the initiative order together, I just kind of say to them, you're all free to do what you want, and I'm just kind of listening in on what each of them are doing. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's obviously not very formal, but it is something that like helps a lot if you have a huge
we do. Yeah, we have an element of that in that like horror campaign, because I believe I think Teddy has a rule now that
he wants to incentivize us helping each other, because he openly says he's out to murder us all, and
we really got to take whatever chances we can get.
So we can get like advantage, or if we already have advantage, we can get like +1 to like attack.
Yeah, like instead of stacking advantage,
if we help each other,
it could be advantage plus an added modifier.
Yeah, that's cool. Like cool. You would have somebody like cast a support spell, and 2 people go up and like flank. Anyway, like that's an interesting way to just inherently make combat more dynamic, where because you're not necessarily chained to the strict turn order, where it's like, oh, if you have a wizard or something that wants to cast a certain spell, like, oh, they need to delay their turn until after the melee people, or whatever. Like, melee people need to delay their turn so somebody can cast sleep or whatever the fuck.
Or I think instead of, for example, like when we have matching initiatives, we can just both go at the same time, and we can potentially play off of each other's like abilities or actions to do like a tag team action.
100%.
That's interesting.
And that honestly for me, that has worked really well. But again, like my game is like very chaotic. Like a lot of people like sad, but like we're all drinking and like just yelling at each other, so it's a very chaotic time. It's not really like but the one thing I think I'll start with is that like my main tip, and something that I think is what DMs who struggle with combat struggle with the most, or like are not maybe aware of, is that try not to think of combat as a separate thing from the rest of the game. I think we're kind of like accustomed when running D&D to think storytelling, RP, storytelling. Now everyone roll initiative, and now it's the combat part of the game, and that is the separate, and that is separate. We're gonna do initiative, and everyone's gonna use their abilities, and then when initiative ends, then we're gonna get into more. Then we're gonna go back to like the role playing and like everything like that. What I would say is that don't separate those two, because just because it feels like you have to. Like in video games, that's like a common thing, right? It's like you'll be playing a game, there'll be all these like dialogue options, and then it'll be like, now fight the monster, and then you do your monster fight, and then it ends, and then all the dialogue options come back up and you do more of that.
Yeah.
But in D&D, you can totally mesh the two. And I think combat is a stage for storytelling, character building, and everything else that goes along with D&D. Like you can totally have dialogue and intensive role-playing moments in between combat or as combat's going on. In fact, I think it's like very encouraged that you sandwich every single turn with just as much description and RP as like you possibly can as a DM, because that way it doesn't feel like, oh, time to get over this combat so we can continue the story. By sandwiching it and putting all of those descriptions or lore, whatever you want to dialogue into the combat, it feels like it's just like a genuine continuation of playing D&D. It's just everyone's in a turn order kind of thing. There's a lot of other things for like increasing D&D, making better encounters and things. But I think just as a DM, that would be like my one main tip is
your biggest advice.
100% is to just don't go into combat mode. Don't go like time to look at the numbers and just like say if stuff hits or not. Like add descriptions to like every single thing that happens and make sure that like there's continuous dialogue and character building moments.
I definitely think that's something I could probably start implementing more, because now that I think about it, like when I think of other, like for example, like Dimension 20, like Brennan is amazing with that, and like being descriptive during combat, and like really kind of paints a picture, and like, still slings like a few words out here and there from the NPCs or like the bad guys when they're being attacked, and interacts with the players on their turn.
The players interacting with each other. But like I was also gonna say, like, you did a really good job with that our last Strixhaven session, because there was like a big moment with my character where like there was a big emotional sort of RP scene in the middle of the fight, and like that only made it more scary and intense and feel out of control. And that, like, you did a really good job weaving that in.
I will say that session was like one of the sessions that I've planned. It is the session that I've planned the most I've ever planned. For a session.
We had to get through so much.
We had to get through so much content. It was like an 18-hour session.
Oh my god.
It was a hot review.
That's like, I mean, it pulled off though. Like it's like it clearly worked,
and it was just like it was one that I was like, I really want to nail the combat scenario, and I wanted it to feel dynamic. I was like, again, tired of like every combat encounter that I've done so far feeling very like stale or quick to get through. And so I was like, I'm gonna put my whole DM into this shit.
No, that didn't like there were stakes, and there was a clock running, and like the longer things went on, the worse they could get. And when things started going bad because the dice stopped rolling well, straight from my character, I was like, oh, this is
bad times.
This is not, this is getting risky. And then it turned out okay, and like we were able to bring it back around. But that was a really good example of that.
What I would say too, then, like on top of that, is when you're running that kind of combat, is that I always find, and this one is more of a personal preference, I think, but if I'm asking my players to roll initiative, I have full plans that like one of them will die that session, or that
will go down at least.
I think one thing is that like
down will die, because those are not the same.
Sorry,
going
very different. Very different thing. I take it back. one of them will go down for sure. I don't kill a player a session. That'd be nonsense. Yeah, you could. Like, I mean, if you were running, there's like that new RP out that's called Shadow Dark. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one. It's a very like old school D&D where it's like your players die at like a sneeze kind of thing.
It's like a meat grinder situation.
Yeah. 100%.
It's like you're coming in here knowing you're gonna be in danger.
Like 5 players. Yeah.
Yeah.
But back to the point is that I think if you're rolling initiative and you're setting all of that up and like you're going to that trouble, you need to make sure that those combat encounters aren't just like placeholder, like you fight a guard and then like you like incapacitate the guard or something. Like if it's little combats like that, I almost would like play them out more in like skill
as
check.
Like a role play thing.
Yeah. Because it feels like, because it literally will take you 10 minutes to like get all the initiative stuff and then everything organized. And then once you get all of that finally rolling, the combat will last like 15 minutes.
Kind of like that, like having minor encounters be more narrative.
Have a check that you make and then you play out how that went down for the degree of success or failure, or like you roll several times and then whoever like is the winner of that set wins the combat. And then that I like that because then you're saving the combat for when it's really intense and it's the big fire, the big battle, the monster, or
that's where you really got to pull out all your stops
at the bottom of the dungeon, or like whatever's waiting for you and you're in your world.
Totally. Yeah, because if you're not thinking that you're going to down a player in the combat, then there's obviously not going to be that much stakes, and therefore your players will just have less buy-in. It is one of those things, and I think you guys you two have talked about it quite a bit, but stakes add a lot. Like if the stakes are high or if like things are dire, players will just naturally be much more invested into the game, unless opposed to if they say are all up and they all have like 30 hit points and the enemies are dealing like 7 points around. It just really doesn't create buy-in, because it just becomes more of a like, here's a got to do this task kind of thing, and it feels much more grindy than it does like cinematic.
Ollie and I both have other campaigns like separate where we both play rogues, and like Ollie's rogue in particular can like
that's a bad bitch.
1v1 a boss basically and knock them down like to half health.
I love her.
But even like my normal like swashbuckler rogue, because like I don't have to have flanking to get sneak attacks. So it's like I've killed people by just hitting them with throwing a knife and hitting them in the head. And my name was like, yeah, he's dead. I'm like, cool, chief, we can move on. But yeah, like with her, like, and there is like a fun. An element of fun to that, because it's cool to be like, I did 40 damage this round.
Totally.
I feel like a badass.
Yeah, like I'm just mowing. I am a human weed whacker right now, just mowing people.
Yeah.
But it very much does feel like a task or an obstacle to get through. It's like these enemies are just difficult terrain.
Yeah.
100%.
Terrain with extra steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is something to be said too. I'm kind of eating my own words here, but there is something said to be like throwing like a relatively easy encounter at your players.
Build up confidence.
Yeah. And just to give them that feel of, like they're badasses and they they've come a long way. Like that does play its role. But if like every game that you're playing, you're throwing these like mild encounters that aren't putting anyone down and not really creating any stakes, it just becomes like more of this like, time to roll initiative, like here goes the next hour of my life kind of thing. Where like I just feel like when it's intense and everything, and like most combat that I've been running with this group of 7, every time we've got to the end of the boss encounter, like 3 people have been down, 2 of them are crying, 1 of them is like, it's like it's a really intense thing.
I love that. And I like what you said about combat often getting treated almost like a placeholder, or it's just something like you feel like you need to do to like do D&D right. And so it's like, okay, I guess it's time to bonk and sling some spells, and it's just maybe it's necessary, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's something you're just trying to throw in to fill a gap, or because you feel like you need to, because you didn't like run a real session. if you didn't have a fight. And it's like that's not true
necessarily.
And it can be more impactful, like if you do have a fight every time, if you're in like a Curse of Strahd, where it's like the world is out to kill you, then them all being high stakes and that is its own like situation. Or when you do hit combat, it's like, okay, this is a real intense, could be problematic situation that we're now in.
Someone's gonna probably go down. And definitely like the stakes is very important. And like you were mentioning, like with that character that I have that's a rogue, like we had a whole thing where she got kidnapped, and that entire interaction was like a party split. It was me and one other player. He went down and we were being chased by literally like a BBG. And I had very limited action economy in what I could do. And I chose, like, as a rogue, I could have bonus action dash and then action dash and gotten out of there scot-free, but it would have required me leaving my party member. And so I sacrificed, and with the movement of the BBG that was trying to catch up to us, I was like, either I get away scot-free now, or I risk trying to stabilize my partner, and then I'm not going to be able to get away from this man.
He's going to catch up and find you.
Yeah.
And hopefully just think your partner's dead.
And so it was down to like a series of rolls of me hiding, him finding me, attacking me, and me trying to hide again, because that's literally all I could do. And that felt so tense.
Totally.
And then leaving off on that cliffhanger. And then we went to like almost 2 months of us doing side shit because my girl had been kidnapped. So I was playing like a temporary PC. Sure. And they were gearing up to go save her or like find out what happened to her. And then when we cut back to when they actually find her, the party still can't like quite access to her, and she's going into an arena to like fight to the death situation. So I'm like, I get handed my fucking character sheet again after a fucking 2 months of not playing her.
Well,
and being like, fuck. And then like I'm going right into a big combat with someone that is much stronger than me. And like her life being in danger. And I was like, God, I'm sweating.
It's like, I hope you're going to optimize.
Yeah. And the party is just like kind of helpless, being like watching the shit and being like, when do we hop in? Because they are surrounded by all of like the baddies, basically. Like we are outnumbered. And I was like, damn. And I forgot. And I think he rolled to see how many rounds of the fight happened before the party could intervene. And I think he rolled a D6 and got 6 rounds. And I was like, I'm not fucking making it 6 rounds, Chief.
6 rounds is a wild amount of time.
And I was like, when this person hits like a fucking freight train. And so I sat there, like looked at my sheet, and I was like, the only way I live is if I'm an assassin rogue, is like, I need to go first in initiative. And I need to crit and get all this buku damage. And I did exactly that.
Hell yeah.
And
you
I was
crit
like,
on that?
I critted.
That's nuts.
And sneak attack.
I'd freak out. I'd flip the table over.
You were owed that.
After the disrespectful rolls of all the
when
bullshit.
When Soldier got abducted, like your dice were
I think she did like 40 plus damage on her first go. And then the second, like I had this person down in two rounds.
Totally.
And like they hit me once and they got me down over half my health. So it was literally like, I need to do this and I need to do this now.
That was what you had to do
to live.
It wasn't like a big dick in the locker room. It was like, no, I must survive.
And I was like, damn, like that was like some of the tensest shit I've ever experienced as a player. But it was so fucking good. And again, I was at peace with that. I was like, if I die, I die, Chief. But but it really was a case of like, the dice have to do this one specific thing or I'm dead. And that's like, just it.
I think building up to those like because like at the end of the day, D&D is a game where we sit around and we roll dice. And so building up to those big dice rolls can be really hard to do, but the payoff is like amazing. So good. And I think the one thing I would say to that is that you can do that in a lot of different ways, and it obviously depends on your game. But using an example from mine is I had an enemy creature who was like I'm gonna screw the name on this, but Yunti, which is like a snake person.
Yuanti.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yuanti.
I was using Yunti for 8. Anyway,
I only know because we're dealing with a lot of snake shit, and I've threatened, because that character was gonna die, I've threatened my DM. I'm like, if you kill her, I will come back here as an artificer Yuan-Ti and make myself a fucking problem for you.
You're like,
yeah,
I will play Lizard Hitler, so help me God.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, he's like, damn.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, Christian's like, I also don't want your character to die.
I'm like, I don't care, Chief, if you do it.
You're like, you'll be punished for it if she does, whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, you're in trouble either way, buddy.
Like, we're all gonna be in pain in this home.
Yeah. And then so in the game though that we were running, the this one of the chief's casters had an ability that basically was like an insta kill, and you had to roll a save to
power kill or something.
Yeah, to survive from I forget what the actual ability was called, but it was an insta kill ability, and it led up. It was like at the end of the encounter, and the whole party was trying to leave like the temple that they were in, and this caster chief came up to them, and one of my players had to make the roll to make sure that like they didn't die. And the thing that I did that I think worked really well is that throughout like the last 4 sessions, I had built up this ability through like lore and other sort of like storytelling aspects. So the players knew it was coming, because if you have those abilities and you like lean it all on like one dice roll, it can be really fun, but it can also feel incredibly unfair to the players if they miss a save and then their character like straight up dies. However, if you build it up for like 4 sessions and you're like, this thing is gonna kill you if you run it, like this guy's
looming.
Yeah,
it's out there.
It's coming. And it built up to like the most, like it was probably the best like session I've ever run. And it was just so like, everyone was sweaty. It was just so intense. And just building up those rolls really made the combat feel like, and again, it comes back to like making sure the stakes are high. Because if it was like, oh, you take 10 hit points if you miss the save, then it's like, who cares? But if it's like an insta death, then it's like, oh, time to roll for my life kind of thing.
Yeah, like there may be nothing you can do to circumvent this, and so the whole time you're waiting for something that you know is coming, so that the like baddie's not gonna not use this thing that they have. So it's like, okay, when is it?
Yeah, and who's it gonna be?
It's like they can probably only do it once, but like they're definitely gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like all of the listeners of the podcast are gonna listen to this. They're gonna go make like the craziest hard encounter ever, and they're gonna kill all their players. Like,
probably
fuck some things up for some people.
Yeah. To that,
I would formal apologies to those players.
Yeah, sorry to like everyone. But to that, I would say too, is that like make sure you do balance it, and that you retroactively, like you don't necessarily as a DM need to make the most optimal attacks every round if you feel that you are like overshooting and overdoing it, or like definitely feels like it's too one-sided. You can make some role-playing decisions to kind of like come back
also a bit. As a GM, understand that like you have full control of what's going on behind the screen. And if you're like, hey, you start realizing that you built an encounter that's really unbalanced in either direction. Your players don't know the fucking health points of those bitches. You can fudge that shit if you need to. Like I think one of the first encounters that like you had as a player, I tossed a fucking corpse flower in Witherbloom, and this bitch is only like level 2.
Yeah, and my character went pretty much by herself, and then like I mean she was gonna go by herself, but she went and told a friend, and that friend's like mom is one of Raina, one of Ollie's like long running just children, like character children who has like permeated every canon that we've Raina is eternal, and
Raina's eternal in
every aspect. But her daughter and my character are good friends, so like she came with my character Anya. But yeah, we were not. If I'm like, oh, I fucked up, Aaron, and like after the combat, I was like, yeah, it could have attacked like 4 times or whatever.
Yeah, and I was like rolling one attack and rolling like a fourth of the damage it could normally do.
Yeah, and it was still a near thing, and like my character's a paladin, so it's like I was just laying on handsing myself because I'm like, I can't take another hit.
Meanwhile, I'm like keeping track of her health furiously to make sure she doesn't die, but I'm bringing her right there to the edge.
Yeah, well, it's like I was calculating to make sure I wouldn't be insta-killed.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that was a real possibility, because especially if your characters are lower level, like that can very easily happen. Where it's like,
like 1 to 3?
The higher levels to fully
a strong breeze will get
totally.
Absolutely. But
but it's like as a GM you have full control, and you can balance that shit out how you see fit and do whatever you need to do to make it like both narratively interesting and combat interesting, and adjust accordingly. And
it's really about reading the room.
And like there are things like resurrection and that they can have fun and interesting character implications of like what happened to your character, like when they died, and like the process of bringing them back is intense because that's not a sure thing. And like how do they cope with having died and been brought back, and like so that it can open up interesting like character development opportunities if they do die, where you don't lose the character.
Or you can have fail safes and Hail Marys too, because like for example with Teddy in our other campaign, he's got a thing where like if we're out of spell slots, or like there's like a special feature ability that we have but we can only use it once kind of thing, you can dip into either your health or you could take a level of exhaustion to potentially gain that spell slot back or cast that like ability again. And we had a moment of like in this last session, because we were like taking on a hag, and so like the party's very dispersed, so some people are like in the hag's house, some people are climbing up the tower trying to get the hag, some of us are outside trying to like battle away like her fucking
eldritch deer, like
the eldritch deer. And then also she like resurrected her little pet graveyard, and they were like this cluster of like dead animals.
Dead animal homunculus. Which was bad for me because I was coming off of like that last session. I was like, this is too close to home. I feel like directly attacked.
But it was also just like I think it was me and like the DM's NPC out there, and I think your character.
Yes.
And we took care of those like giant fucking mooses.
It's like my character Maeve, she's a monk. So she does, and she's a Way of the Long Death monk. So she's
and I'm the cleric.
As tanky as a monk can get, and she does buku damage. And so I was like, okay, if I can kill, because we didn't know if the moose were like glass cannons or not, and they didn't have as much health as one would think. But they weren't like completely fragile. But my monk could take one down in like 2 or 3 rounds. But at some point, one like charge attacked her, and she went down. And then Ollie's character Seraphina had to.
I went down twice in that combat.
You went down twice,
and then the DMPC went down, and I remember like he went down, but he had killed like one of the moose things that were near us, away from you.
He killed the one over by like you and Alyssa's character. And everyone else.
But then at that point, Alyssa's character was gone. It was just me out there. He went down, and the fucking homunculus thing absorbed the moose and became an even bigger, like basically a giant mounted centaur, like abomination thing. And it's literally just me out there.
Yeah. It's like, what we're not going to do is that. Like,
and so I was like, motherfucker, because everybody else is inside. And so I like, then I remembered that he had that thing of like, we can exchange a level of exhaustion for an ability, and I have turn undead. So I looked at him and I was like, can I, and I had already used it in the dungeon prior to us getting there. So I was like, can I do this? And we rolled for it. And so that I succeeded. And like the only reason we fucking lived at that point is because my turn undead happened.
Yeah, because after it's absorbed, then like the thing that the homunculus gets the max hit points of all the things it absorbed. So it basically
that's a cool mechanic.
Resurrected. Yeah. And it's just Teddy with a sadistic smile setting his fucking flesh pet golem on top of the moose that he got from like the Christmas store. And like,
so good.
We simply cannot do this. But you were able to turn undead, and they all kind of went.
And it's having little cool things like that you can do that are not necessarily like extremely combat tactics or whatever, but you're like, I have a Hail Mary in my back pocket, and this is a tense situation.
Yeah, totally. But it still costs something. Of like you took a level of exhaustion.
Oh yeah, my girl's
like she's not in good shape.
She needs a nap.
We're alive. But we do need the magic nap.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think even like talking about Turn Undead, I just brings up like I'm a very competitive person as like just in general. It's kind of funny. Me and my fiance were both like extremely competitive people, but we're like really bad at sports. So our kids are gonna have like the worst time of their lives because they're going to be the most competitive people ever, but they are going to be like so like they will not be able to compete anywhere except for like card games and dance. Well, I dance actually. My partner, she's a Ukrainian dancer, so we have that. But other than that, it's
they could probably do like marching band or something.
Yeah,
or unless it's a thing. Yeah, where like the two like recessive traits cancel each other out. So like maybe they'll just be
star D1 athletes.
6-7 pro basketball. Yeah. That'll be yeah. I'm sure that anyway, just being a competitive person, those abilities like Turn Undead and other like really strong abilities like that, sometimes it can be as a DM really hard to swallow that your players have those abilities and can like really turn the tide of like your whole encounter with one thing. But as a DM, I've learned to really really embrace that there are some broken abilities in D&D and to let your players use them because it makes your players feel so cool and badass when they can like turn the entire encounter into like a much easier thing with like one or two abilities. And it's one of those things where it's like you look at it from a balancing perspective and you're like, this is crazy. Like this literally like makes like all of my creatures like unusable. However, sometimes it's good to really embrace the weaknesses of your creatures and let your players just go ham because it feels bad as a competitive person. It feels bad to like have your encounter get totally slammed. However, your players will like it will feel like a cool move from your players. And whenever, so
and it's also like I think a large part it's like there's so many things that are so niche that people will be like, oh, I don't know if I should take this because I don't know if it's ever going to be applicable. I feel like your job as a DM is like, take the thing that you want and I will find a way to work it into the narrative and give you your cool moment. Because it's not just gonna be like, oh, cool, that's a thing you can do. And I will never address it.
Oh, you have blind fighting? Well, you'll
never be in that. But also like, for example, like me, there's moments where I also like, especially when starting out DMing, I was like, I have no concept for what is broken, what is not. So I kind of give a blanket, like if it sounds cool and not like to me, it doesn't sound crazy overpowered, I'll just say yes to it. And if as we're playing, it turns out it's broken, maybe we'll like readdress it and adjust it or put limits on it, whatever. But I'm never gonna like have you take a thing and then be like, no, you don't have that anymore because I don't like it. I'm gonna give you something to adjust it.
I also think like as the DM, like if you have players that are playing creatively and using their characters to the fullest extent and everything, that opens up the doors for what you can do as the DM and the amount of shit you can play through when you're going through your like Toys R Us of monster.
Yeah, you're like, we've made this okay for your player, thus my NPCs can also do the thing.
It's like you also, it's like you have a lot more stuff to pick from than the players do. And so it's like you can just be like, oh, and suddenly Tarask if you wanted to. And they have to sort that out. And that's cool from a DM perspective because it takes kind of the reins off and you have free will to do crazy shit and see what happens.
Also, just as a public defender situation, and I am going to start going on a rant here because I remembered this, but it's if your players have chosen like a spell or they have an ability that maybe you forgot and you've planned an encounter, you've planned a situation, whatever, and then you forget that they have a thing and they pull that shit out on you and you're like, fuck.
Are we going to speak with?
Oh yeah. And so it's like, like I get it now as a DM and it's sometimes that means like, oh, there are like narrative things that weren't meant to happen just yet. And now you've used this thing that kind of exposes all of that and like peels the curtain back and I kind of have to give you these things. I had a situation where like we were in the Curse of Strahd, like Ravenloft thing. And we were going to bypass a graveyard that the BBG's like old party was buried in.
Right.
And we were like, okay, we're going to go check that out to see if we can find out any tea about this girl in her previous life. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm the bard. So I was like, obviously I'm going to pick Speak with Dead.
Oh yeah.
And take that shit with me going into the situation.
The domain of like a vampire.
Yeah. And so I like take that shit in. And so we go, I think he made us like pick one person to check out their mausoleum, whatever. And I think it was the wizard. And I was like, cool, I'm going to cast Speak with Dead. And I saw the moment where he looked at me and he was like, I did not think that you had that spell. And did not factor that into what this was. So that would mean that we get to ask the ex party member questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there's a limit on the amount of questions.
Yeah. There's limits already in place. But he
asked the dead man to give a State of the Union address on how to be.
No. But he had a moment where he was arguing back with me and he's like, well, I mean, he's been dead a really long time and he doesn't have like a tongue or like a throat to make words or sounds out of. And shit. And I looked at him and I was like, then why the fuck do I have this spell? Like, why does this spell exist? Are you telling me I can only speak to freshly dead corpses?
It's not speak with a lightly decomposed person.
No, it's speak with dead.
It's like, that's a weak improv move.
Yeah, and I'm like, are you in a world of magic? You're going to argue anatomy and decomposition with me?
You're supposed to yes and. It is like going back to the improv rule of yes and is I think so important. Because and even if you don't know where it's going, just fucking go with it and make up nonsense, and it'll probably be fine.
Totally. Yeah. That is like the magic of D&D, I feel. And it's something that's hard to embrace as DMs a lot of time because it's really hard to step away from like, I have a super cool encounter lined up. I have all of this stuff. This is how I want the session to go. But in my opinion, the best stuff that comes from that is when you as a DM get surprised and you have to like make shit
up on the fly.
Do something that like is the different because then the players aren't just playing the game, but like you're playing the game as well. And that is just like one of the reasons why I like fell in love with D&D so much is that it ignores all rules of like predetermined like gaming kind of like you do this happens. It's like you literally have the option to like totally change the story with like one cast Speak with the Undead. And it's a little bit like we're not talking about combat anymore, but that is just like my love for D&D is the fact that can happen, you know?
Oh yeah. And you can't imagine what I went through when we watched the goddamn D&D movie and they did their fucking Speak with Dead.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
I was
what
with the party members that I had that whole fucking thing with, and like we no longer
100%.
talk to that DM, but I was like, I'm so tempted to just call up his ass and yell at him about
buddy.
it.
Yeah,
this guy doesn't have a tongue. He's talking.
So fucking annoying because it's just like you've picked this hill to die on and you're wrong. And he wasn't someone that could admit when he was fucking wrong, and I'm like, I just hate everything about it.
I am.
But it's also like if you as the DM, you're like, okay, I don't want to say certain things that would be like kind of unveiling too much about the plot before I'm ready. Like you have full control over what I know, like what he tells me. You could work around it however you see fit. I won't know better.
It's a tough thing to do.
I don't know what that dead man knew when he lived.
Nah.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe him and her were just not super close. And he's like, I don't know. She fucked the barbarian a bunch of times and I just kind of minded my business. Like you could have just said that.
Oh, what a good story. Holy cow. Get me in that campaign.
Right?
Yeah, but no, totally. Like, I mean, it is a tough thing to tell DMs, but it's really like combat's part of it, but going with the flow of what your players dish out, like that is part of the magic of D&D, I would say. And in that light too, I also like one of my big things that I do for combat is it's real, like you've already mentioned it, but it's a real yes and mentality, which I didn't do for quite a while, where I was like I was a very big stickler for the rules where it's like, let's say a character moved their full movement and then they were like 3 feet away from the enemy or something, or like just out of reach. I'd be like, nope, you can't. But now as like a veteran DM or like someone who's been playing the game for a while, I am so much more lax about that kind of stuff because it just creates so much more opportunity for my players to do. And no one's having fun if they move their full movement and then they're like 2 feet away from the monster.
And I'm like fuck.
Yeah, it's just like come on, just give them the 2 feet.
Give them the extra step.
Exactly. And there's enough of that of like your dice are gonna roll like shit some games and you're not gonna hit anything. And there's amounts of that where like nobody has any control over it, the players or the DM. So it's like, just if you can let people have fun, you should do that because it is a hobby at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so like implementing like that, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, but it's like the rule of cool, where like
we did a whole episode about
I'm well versed.
Yeah, yeah.
I live there rent free.
Yeah.
That rule is like that rule I find is very important to combat, because it also just gives players a much better way to like have like go about combat, and like again like telling more of a dynamic story, opposed from like, well, like all I can really do is run up and like hit the creature kind of thing. One thing that I've implemented in my in the current stuff that I'm producing, which is like everybody has been very supportive of it, but I can see people not liking it, is something that I've like for the boss encounters I've produced is called achievements. And basically it's like it's pulled from like all video games everywhere, but like during an encounter there are 3 achievements that I lay out, and they add difficulty to the encounter, but they also like add a level of option for the player to like do something cool. So for example, in the first encounter I released, it was like this big owl, like kind of like owlbear, but like wings. It was like I don't know, I can't really describe what this creature was, but it was this big winged creature, and one of the achievements was to ride the creature for 3 rounds of combat. And that was like so awesome in the game, because like two of the guys, they climbed up on this thing, and the creature like went all around the room, and they kept having to roll like athletics and acrobatics checks. And it was really cute because they were just like holding hands the whole time trying to hold on to this creature, and it just created such a fun extra thing, and it was so cool.
Really fucking love that.
And it was I could see how you like, I couldn't totally understand if players are like that gamifies the game too much, because I'm sure like it is a very like gamification thing. There are ways that I think a DM could introduce it in like more of a like storytelling way. In the ways I presented, it's like, oh, there's just extra loot if you do these achievements. But
I could even see it something as like, for example, like in that encounter that you're explaining, like for example, if there are, say, I don't know, witnesses that are seeing this happen, maybe they gain like some kind of reputation role playing wise, and like when they come back to the town, people are like, oh, you're the owl rider, whatever, and that gives you bonuses to charisma stuff.
Or it's like if you save civilians or something, like prioritize getting them out over just like
there can be like loot bonuses, but also like role play bonuses as far as like what genuinely would happen if like the town saw you save them in a particular way. They're gonna, suddenly it's gonna be easier to roll charisma checks or persuade people or get access to things you wouldn't have access to.
I love those
before.
Ideas.
And it just kind of encourages creativity in combat.
Exactly. And that's like I think the real like rule of cool comes from too, and everything is that like if you can get creative with your turn, you're going to have a lot more fun as a player, and you're going to be thinking a lot more of like what I can do, and that's going to keep you occupied as the combat kind of drones on and you're waiting for your turn. And it also just creates more of this cinematic thing. Like every player at my table was super invested in these 2 holding hands on top of this creature as it was flying through, because it was
you're like, you want them to get it.
You want them to succeed. And it was also just like very funny, and like it was just like very funny and cute. And like it's if the achievements weren't there, they're probably, my players are very like optimal kind of thing, most of them are. So they probably would have all just like ran up to the creature and like hit it kind of thing. And again, that doesn't really create that dynamic.
It adds dynamics to it.
100%. So always try to implement, I would say, like that rule of cool, and really try to encourage your players. It doesn't have to be achievements, but if there is a way that you can try to get your players to do cool things, they will have more fun, and everybody at the table will have more fun during combat.
That's incredible. 100%. I can think of no better way to end that, because I think that statement just like encapsulated all of it.
Exactly.
And we're coming up on time, but like this has been incredible.
This was so
informative and so good.
I want to sit at your guys' table. It sounds like
our table is a fucking time. Yeah, if you're ever in Houston or Austin, or you're planning on coming, you let me know and I'll make it happen for you. But yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much. Definitely give us your socials and where people can find you.
100%. If people hear this podcast and they want to like check out what my stuff is, or maybe get some ideas for some interesting combat, feel free to just message you two on Instagram or something, and let me know, and I'll just provide you with like a free PDF of my content.
Ooh, incredible. Awesome. Perfect. And what are your handles where people can find you?
So it's mainly Dungeon Master Thom, Dungeon Master spelled out one word, _THOM. I'm a Thom, not a Tom. And that's basically it. I'm on Instagram, Threads. I am on Facebook, but I think I have like 1 follower. So just find me at Instagram.
I don't even know anything that's going on our Table Talk Facebook. I know it exists.
Yeah. But yeah, follow me on Instagram for sure. I release like 90% of my content is free, and you can just look at it on Instagram. And definitely follow me there. It's at, again, Dungeon Master _Thom with an H.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I guess we'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys.
Of course. Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddyscites.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.